Two things I was going to do today. One is talk about what you might like to do if you want to continue to pursue this stuff, and then do a demo. And with the demo, I wanted to try to combine as much of what we've talked about into one kind of scene to whatever extent we can. The biggest key to being good at this stuff is practicing. Again, harking back to the first class, the observation and analysis, in my mind, is really critical. That you know, looking at the real world and other pieces of art or, movies, TV, anything, and observing light, and analyzing what's going on. You can learn a lot working on a crew. There's different ways to work on crews, but if you can get on a crew, even if it's as a volunteer, it's a tremendous way to work. If you're in a position to hire people, you can learn a lot doing that. You can watch what happens or talk to people. Rental places are phenomenal places to learn about technology and equipment. I mean, you learn the name of everything and how it works and what it's called. Like it's thorough what you'll learn. It doesn't pay much, but it's a really good training ground. You can intern, which is not. You can pay very little or nothing, but again, it can be a good learning opportunity. You can volunteer. If you know somebody that's got some passion project, a little film they're making, and you want to help them out, it can be a great way to learn. You can take more classes, and you can, as far as learning about equipment, you can rent stuff, you can buy stuff. So there are various ways to practice. And so to go into a little more detail on those things, the observation and analysis thing, and this again, it's just kind of a review, but look at scenes and say, what direction is that light coming from? Where is the light that's causing these effects that I'm seeing? What color is the light? I mean, it's easier here when you say it's blue, right? But you notice here you've got warmer and cooler accents and subtle things, hard lights and soft lights, and how they're kind of mixed. The contrast is very low contrast in a scene like that. There's much higher contrast in a scene like that. And reflectivity, you've got specular highlights, things that are reflecting light in this glassware, All the things we've been talking about, try to remember and notice those things and think about, if you see something you like, you see a movie, you see a shot or a photo or a painting or anything that you like, or just see something and you're walking into a shop or something, and think about, well, why does that look good? What looks good about it? What's happening there light-wise? What's hitting that? What's going on? Color, direction, all the different attributes of that. Pay attention, and if you see something that you think is really neat or beautiful, think about what's going on in that scene. And then if you're gonna go do some lighting, kind of use that analysis to say, okay, I know what I've got to work with. Do I have a budget? Can I rent some equipment? Am I hiring somebody? Do I own some lights? Am I just going to go find a location with nice lights? Whatever it is you've got to work with, how can I take those tools that are available to me and apply them to I'm going to try to get something that looks kind of like that foggy scene. How can I best do that? An obvious answer is you find a foggy place to go shoot, right? But I mean, whatever it is that it takes to get the look you're looking for. By analyzing an image that you like and deciding how did that image get to look that way, it'll tell you, what do I need to do to make an image look that way? So it's just that practice of breaking things down. And then, go back and look what you did. Look at what you did and analyze your own work and criticize it and listen to other people criticize it and compare it to what you used as your inspiration, and then go do it again. And over time, that's how you get better at everything. And that's, I think that's just, you just go through that process of thinking about it, breaking it down, setting a goal, trying it, and then critiquing and thinking about that, and you keep going like that. If you want to do lighting, rinse and repeat. That's how you get better. In terms of practical, putting yourself in situations, working under crew is just fantastic. Freelancing is the best training ground in the world because, if you get with a group of people you can learn from them, and particularly if they're good people, and they know a lot. They know more than you do, and they know things you don't know. They might even learn from you, but you learn from each other. When you're freelancing, typically you go from job to job to job. You're like a migrant worker. But what's great about that is you learn everything this 5 people know, and then you go over here and learn what these 5 people know, and then you learn what these 10 people know. It's amazing because you learn what everybody knows, and it's just incredible, and you'll start noticing that, well, everybody does this, well, that must be important, and then you say, well, some people do this way and some people do it that way. There must be more than one way to do that. See, it's just really powerful, what you can learn. You also, it's great networking. You get to know people, and if they like what you do, then that can be your ticket to getting work. They like what you're doing. They tell somebody else, hey, you need a whatever, a PA, a grip. This person's great, and then that can be it. You could be working full time just based on getting to know people. It's two-edged sword. If you go in there and, drop somebody's 12K and smash open their whatever, you may never, you may have to go move to another town to get work, but it's more than just meeting people, but it is a really great networking opportunity. There are directories that I find those to be of somewhat limited usefulness, but they're not of no usefulness. I mean, you can get the things I've been a part of. You do occasionally get people contacting you through those. It's not like you're gonna get full-time work out of it or anything, but it's better than it's better than not. In terms of hiring a crew, if you're in a producer kind of a role, or you're the client, and you have a job and you have a budget and you're going to go, okay, go get this done. You're not going to do it yourself, or you're not going to do it all yourself. You could go out and hire a production company, and if you do that, you're going to work with them and tell them what you want, and you're going to be as involved as you want to be, probably. And talk about the creative. Talk about the execution, and just being there when they're going through the process is going to be a great learning opportunity. If you're working with an agency, a marketing agency, advertising agency, same kind of thing. They might start at a higher, more general level of your communication goals, your marketing goals, your target audience, and things that are less, less out in the field, putting lights down kind of thing, but they should certainly eventually get to that. They might hire a production company. You can get to hiring a crew through directories. Rental houses can put you in touch with crews. You certainly find people through word of mouth, plenty. Rental houses, these places have like everything, and you have to get it and say, are all the parts here? Check it off. Is it still work? Plug it in. You got to know what it's called, what all the different parts to it are, how they put it in the case, how to plug it in, what it's supposed to do, what the numbers are supposed to read out. You gotta know everything about this stuff, and so it's phenomenal if you work there for a few months and then you go out to work on a job to do lighting. I mean, somebody says, I need that Gemini with a blah, blah, whatever it is they ask for. You know exactly what they're talking about, because you've handled all that stuff, so it's, those jobs, I don't think there's a lot of those jobs. I think they can be kind of hard to get. I don't think they pay a ton, but they're very, very useful things to have. This is kind of the life of an intern. Little or no pay, but you can meet people, and sometimes internships turn into paid work, so they can be good things to do. You can volunteer on your friends' projects or whatever. You can build really good relationships. You can strengthen your skills. You get a chance to be creative. You might have a job where you go out and do a company newsletter, and you interview the same executives every, week, and it's very much the same. You're not being creative, and you go out and volunteer for somebody's, independent film they're doing, or short film or something, and maybe you can stretch some muscles that you're not normally, getting to do. There are lots of classes. I've been up taking classes and assisting teaching classes and working on staff at the main workshops, which are really cool. I mean, they're neat. It's a neat place, neat environment, main media workshops. There are community colleges that have really good hands-on kind of programs Of course, there's, 4-year degrees you can get, but they're, like I'm doing here, there are studios that run workshops and things, and there are lots of resources online, so there are a lot of places you can get in and study things on your own. And then in terms of just becoming familiar with equipment, you can always rent stuff and try it out. And that way, if you're thinking you might need something, but you're unfamiliar with it, you're not confident using it, you can rent it and or you can go to a rental house sometimes and just play with it. And that way you know better what you're doing when you need it. And for something that you think it's going to work for you all the time, you can buy it and really get to know it really well that way. And you can buy used stuff and new stuff, and you can trade things. So
I want to talk about a few other subjects. One is, not doing everything yourself. We're all in different stations in life. We're all doing different things. We're all different jobs. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's, maybe you are working on a movie set with 200 other people and you have, you do one thing, you move cables around, set them up for the lighting crew, or you work in the office, you fill out the payroll forms or whatever it is you do. Or maybe, you work in an ad agency and they do their own videos and there's 4 of you and, you're the guy, you do some camera work, and you do a lot of different kinds of roles, on a certain level. So it's all over the map what you might end up doing. But for various reasons, you're going to need help at times. Yeah, come on. Greetings.
Salivations.
So, there's some planning, anything. They were in a place that was too dark and they couldn't get the shot they wanted and the lens was too short and all that, and you could go out and test anything you can ahead of time, and if you can go out and scout a location and you can go out, I'm often scrambling around with all that work and make a living series of things. And we've even done similar sheets before, but we're just talked to a client. We're going to do a series of things and we'll just come in and just do a dry run, set it all up, run through the paces, because you just, if you can flush out anything that's, could be an issue, right? So, you get something, anything that's, could be an issue, right? To do what you think's going to work. You can even go to a rental place. Those places will let you, and then schedule. You go there and, measure and, see electricity. This has nothing to do with lighting, but see if it's loud. Measure the light levels and, see if there's enough electricity. This has nothing to do with lighting, but see if it's loud and noisy there. There's all kinds of logistical concerns. All right. So depending on your production, you might not have any help. You might not need any help. You might just have, kind of an assistant giant team, not have any help. You might not need any help. You might just have, kind of an assistant, or you might have this whole giant team, And so if you say you're going to hire a director of photography, like Outman or marketing or somebody, and their job is to make sure that the image is what it needs to be, right? So, you want to go have a discussion with that person as much as you can ahead of time. How they're going to do it, what they need, what you need, what kind of time you need, what kind of resources you need, all that kind of stuff. If maybe you're going to be the director of photography, you're going to shoot the thing, and you got a pretty good feel for what you're doing, but maybe you need to get a gaffer because there's a lot of lights and you don't own all those lights, and you've got a guy that's going to come over the truck. He's got some big stuff and he's maybe up on some of the stuff that you don't really, so familiar with, right? You talk to him and talk about what your vision is. And there's people out there that are so amazing and have so much knowledge and it can be great collaborators, and you can both do a better job because you're working together and bouncing ideas off each other and know that, and even if you aren't doing hands-on stuff, I think it's always nice to be familiar with the ideas and be able to speak the language a little bit. And if you are doing hands-on stuff, you might need some crew to come help you. And there again, you're all kind of speaking the same language. So we talk about you could hire a DP, you could hire a gaffer, you could hire an assistant, you could hire a whole production company. Right? So you could hire a company to come in and just do it for you, and you're their client, and then you're really taking on a very high level role of saying, this is what the vision is, this is what the purpose of it is. Correction company, maybe for somebody else. Maybe you are the correction company. You're going to execute it. Maybe for somebody else to go out and figure out from them, what it is you're going to need and come up with a list and budget it. And so all that goes into that planning, going in ahead of time and figuring out what it is you're going to need and come up with a list and budget it. And so all that goes into that planning, going in ahead of time and figuring out, going to scout the thing and figuring out, what is the situation? How much light do I need? How much time do I need? How many people do I need for that? Let's get this gaffer because he knows how all this works. Let's bring him on the scout. How many people do you think you'll need for this? How long it's going to take to set this up? What instruments are we going to need? How much is that going to cost? Is the client okay with that? Let's go to the rental house. Do you guys have this stuff? How much do you charge for it? When do we have to pick it up? When do we have to bring it back? So you get into all these little details. Obviously, the bigger the scale of the thing, the more of that stuff is. You could spend months doing that, or you could spend a day doing that if it's something tiny, right? So they have a studio and they do, or my stuff, you do some of the same. And so some things you do some of the same kinds of jobs over Martin, over and over again. And so some things you would just want to buy them because it's a waste of money to rent them all the time. And one's 10 times more money than the other. Why do I need this one versus that one? And because one might do the job and the other might not, right? So, you're trying to figure out, what fits for you. One might do the job and the other might not, right? So, you're trying to figure out, what fits for you and trying to, go in there, think it through. And it starts at the very beginning when you propose, and it starts at the very beginning when you propose a job or you have an idea for a job or an idea for a project, and it involves a UFO abduction. The scene involves a purple light coming down from the tops of the trees and abducting children, and you can't make the movie without that happening, and you can't do it with CGI or whatever, right? Well, you're going to have the money to put some purple lights up in the trees. So, that is an essential part of the thing, right? Well, you might have some other concept where you can just go out. You don't need any lights. It's going to work out perfectly fine. You just go out, find the right day and find the right location, and, it's going to be fine, So just planning the lighting according to what the project needs, according to what's going to be practical, and planning the lighting according to what the project needs, according to what's going to be practical, and figuring out that you got the right crew, you got the right equipment, that you need to buy things, you need to test them, you need to scout things, all that thinking ahead, and consulting with other people is just hugely important.
We'll build a scene using all of the lighting techniques discussed throughout the course. We'll start out by playing our Dune-esque movie trailer, and then go through the demonstration of how we lit the main scene for that. I'm going to show you a scene. Now, we did this for the very last class that we'll be getting to, one of the last classes we'll be getting to. We lit this as kind of our final scene where we put all of our techniques together into one scene and tried to show as many techniques as we could. And I want to talk about, analyzing lighting and thinking about observing what you see. And the aim here is to identify the lighting elements in the image. You know, what's going on here? Are there more than one light source? Is the light reflecting off objects in the background? If I wanted to recreate this scene, how would I do it? So the objectives of this course are to help you observe the lighting around you and in media and artwork, to analyze what that light is doing and how the light sources are functioning, and to be able to apply that knowledge to your own work. So let's look at our clip. I want to look at this and say, what are the attributes of the light going on here? This video and these still photos with all these questions are available in the materials that you have. So if you want to go look at this and spend time thinking about it, feel free. That's all available. We're gonna do a little exercise, which follows what I said first, which is we're gonna say, let's find something in a movie or somewhere that we liked. So I just watched Dune. I thought it was really cool. So I'm gonna make my own Dune. Good luck. I got a $40 budget, so I can do it, I know it. I gotta say, you know, well, what's going on in that Dune scene? I like them in that little cave thing with the Bene Gesserit witches and all that stuff. Well, it's all this mystical, it's ethereal. It was this spooky, shimmering, warm. That's what I want my thing. I want it to look like a magical, dreamlike cave. What can I do to achieve that? I want it to be low key. I want there to be a lot of dark areas. Okay, so I don't want it to be a bright, happy scene. I want it to be very moody and dark and low key and mysterious looking. I want it to be very warm. I want to use a lot of warm tones, but I want there to be a lot of high contrast, you know, to add drama. You know, I want the lights and darks to be very stark, you know, and I want it to be soft. And some of those things are kind of at odds with each other. Like if it's soft, how's it high contrast, you know, and that can be a little tricky. One trick you run into is trying to kind of contain the light. If you're trying to have a lot of high contrast, you know, you want light to hit one thing and not hit another thing. And hard light does that a lot better than soft light. Soft light tends to spread out everywhere. So if I'm hitting something with hard light, then I'm not getting a soft image. So I'm putting a 1.4 aperture lens on the camera, and I'm shooting it at an 85 millimeter, and I've put a lot of separation from the foreground to the background. So my background and my foreground, for that matter, I've got a very shallow depth of field, and my background and foreground are way out of focus. So then that's going to blur and blend that stuff. So it's going to make it very soft. Whether I use a hard light or a soft light, it's going to make it very soft. And then, you know, you compare what you do to Dune. We're not going to do that. So I just programmed this little move here. The camera's just scrolling along. And that's just, you know, again, I feel like that slow, graceful motion where the background's kind of scrolling behind her is going to add to that feel. I'm going to go ahead and kill these lights, and we have blackness. That's it. How you like it? It's pretty. I'm going to give her a key light. I'm using a soft light. So there you go. Now I also have my exposures up a little too high right now, so let me bring that down. Now I want to have a 1.4 aperture because I want shallow depth of field as possible. So this camera has built-in ND, so I'm dialing in enough ND to get the exposure I want on her face while leaving the aperture wide open so that the background's very soft. So that's approximately the exposure I'm looking for. So what I've got is a soft key light that's wrapping kind of nicely around her. Now it's spilling a little bit onto the background and some of my props back there. And that's one of the issues you have with soft lighting is it kind of spreads out everywhere. So I'm just going to take a flag and put a little cider on this to knock it off those props in the background a little bit. So it's not so much, it's not so much hitting that stuff back there, because I want that stuff back there to be really dark. So now now my background's like really, really dark. So now I basically got a key light, a soft key light, and that's it. A soft key light and zip. The other thing I did here was I put some foreground elements in. I taped some filter glass up in front of the camera, and I put this big tube of glass up there because as the camera passes it, it kind of distorts the image. It's so far out of focus that it just gives you this distortion. And what I like to do with that, since that's reflective material, you can shine lights into those or even into the lens. You can get little flashes and flares and kind of neat effects that give you that kind of erratic, random kind of looking thing. So to kind of simulate that without having a bunch of crew and sophisticated robotics and stuff, I just took one of these MC lights and programmed a little kind of flash effect. And what you're going to see there now, that's reflecting in the glass. As it goes past those foreground elements, you'll see these little kind of blurry, see globs of light. I didn't really want it to be like a bar like that at the bottom so much, but that's just kind of that's more like what I was going for. Just kind of a random, kind of a flickering thing. So I think that's going to add into the overall scene. So I want to give her some fill light. And one thing I think that we're talking about bright, intensity contrast between bright and darkness, and there's a lot of contrast right there. The key side of her face and the dark side of her face are a really, really big difference in brightness. But I think also color contrast is really neat. And if you want something to look warm, it helps. If you want something to look dark, it helps if there's something bright somewhere in the frame. If you want something to look warm, it helps if there's something cool somewhere in the frame. It makes the warm things look warmer. And if you have something bright, it makes the dark things look darker. You have something to kind of compare it to. So I'm gonna put a fill light on, but I just want it to be very, very subtle. I just want a tiny little bit and let's see if that's coming on there. Yeah, there it is. And I've kept it very cool. Did you see that, guys, see that come on? Yeah. And can you see that it's much bluer than the other light? So it's there, you can see the detail in her face, but it's a cool light. It almost looks like there's not a light there, but it does bring out the detail. That's my foreground lighting. Now, I wanted to make a background, a very far background, that had this kind of undulating these warm elements that were subtly moving. So I've taken warm lights and kind of raked them across this cloth. And that gives you some like areas of kind of light and dark, and because of the focus, it's kind of soft. And also, again, with color contrast, to accentuate the warmth, I've also added a little cool light. And now that blue, I think, is making the warm parts look even warmer. And then I've got a noisy fan. And that's going to let those things move around some. So you get some kind of fluid motion in there. So then I want to put some edge lights on her. So I think that'll just look cool. So I'm going to start with a nice warm hair light. So yeah, and I've got that's a pretty warm light. I think I originally had that behind her a little more. Yeah, so just a little warm light on her hair. And I think that's nice. It just adds to the whole kind of warm effect. I think it'd be nice, as it often is, I think it's nice when something like an edge light is motivated, when it looks like it's coming from something. I'm gonna take one of the gobos that Alton was talking about and I talked about at one point in this Source 4 light, and with a very warm gel on the front of it, so it's a very warm color. And I'm going to pop it into a prop in the background there. Wait till the camera comes around. Let's see. And there is a little windowy looking thing, but that maybe gives you an excuse for that warm edge light on the back of her head. It's coming from that little sun thingy-mabobber, magic sun thingy-mabobber that the Dune people have. And then, since I just really like edge lights, I want to also have this really hot, cool edge light over here. And this thing's just going to be like burning her up. And if she turns her head from side to side a little bit, you'll see sometimes. And if you can, car, you just kind of look, yeah, see it, it's just really hot when she turns, and then turn back the other way, you know, and you get, you know, and then turn, yeah, just keep going back forth. I mean, I like that look, you know, yeah, not fast, just slow. But again, I like motivation. Plus I like it to be kind of, I want this kind of like sparkly effect out of this stuff. Now, if I had more time and budget and props people, I'd go find more sophisticated sparkly stuff. But I found these at the party store for like $3. So they're not the most sparkly things you can find, but they're somewhat sparkly. And I've got light that is shuttered down, so it's not hitting the background. It's just hitting these little disco balls. But they're creating specular highlights. So those are now creating little flashy highlight things. So all of that, I'm trying to get some of this atmosphere going. I also thought, since the dune people live down in the fiery pits, I would go ahead and put a little bit of an uplight that's really red on her face. That's very subtle. You see a little bit of it in her eyes, a little bit coming up underneath her neck and stuff. But that just gives it a little bit of a, I don't know, spooky or something kind of a look. So that's pretty much it. And then one more touch is I decided maybe we could do this, which is just going to create some thick atmosphere that'll let you just kind of smear everything out and make it soft. Let you maybe see some light beams, maybe get the fire department to come. So that's kind of, I think that's kind of blending the background together, having that haze. And this is not like this is called a hazer. It's a type of fog machine that puts out a very thin, even haze. They use it so you can, you know, you go to rock shows and you can see the beams of the light coming through the air. That's because of these hazers that just put a thin layer of fog in the air that lets light beams show up. I don't have any light beams that are intense enough and aimed in the right direction for you to really see them. If you come over where I am, you can see the little light beams coming off the disco balls, but you're not seeing too much of that in the shot because of the shallow depth of field. But that's enough fog. We'll let that dissipate a little bit. So that's my little mystical, you know, a little too much fog, and it'll dissipate here pretty quickly with the fan going. But what do you think? You like it? Yeah. What do you think, Michael? Yeah. And I think the fog's a little much right now, but it'll go away pretty quick. I turned the machine off, so it'll kind of tone down as we go. So so there she is. Now be a mystical, magical person. Cast some spells on us, Kari. Cast some spells on us. Yeah. You're way too nice to be a mystical, magical person. So, you know, I'm trying to use as many of the things we talked about in class and combine them, and a few new little things. But, you know, trying to show how some of that stuff can all work together. And, you know, some things that maybe look like effects you're doing in post, but we're not doing anything in post. It's all in camera. You know, all that distortion coming off of the foreground elements and those things. Yeah. And so, you know, when you watch cooking shows, you know how they show you how to do all the cooking, and then at the end they put it in the oven, and then they immediately pull out one that's already cooked so you can see it when it's done and you taste it. I went ahead and shot this yesterday and edited a little bit together for you. So I made my Dune movie trailer. So now we can see what we got when we edit it together. These are shots I shot them all, but they're just from various things I just pulled out of the archives here, but. That's it. That's our trailer. So, you know, we didn't have a whole lot to work with here. We didn't have a big budget or anything, but I thought it looks kind of cool, you know. So, and we could have done a pretty thing with pretty outdoor lighting and, you know, nice trees and warm sunny stuff, or we could have done anything. And there's all kinds of things you can do. But you know, that was just I like doing this. Well, one, because I like sci-fi junk, but also because I think it let us use a lot of different techniques in one setting. You know, we got to mess with reflectivity and you know, foreground and background, and even some of the photographic techniques like you know, the shallow depth of field and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's it.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed foundational film lighting. We sure had fun putting it together and presenting it. Now, before we go, I'm going to jump way back to the very first class and show you about 2 minutes where we showed our little movie trailer and asked some key analytical questions, challenging you to break the video down and look at the lighting and try to decide where the light's coming from, what color are they, what are their intensities, the various analytical questions that I think you should be asking all the time when you're watching a movie, when you're just walking around, when you're thinking about lighting something. It's that ability to break it down into its components and decide, you know, how you're going to tackle that issue. So take a look again at that clip we just put together and look at these questions and think about it.
How many light sources are there? And you might have to look at more than one of these frames. What direction are those lights coming from? Where are they placed? What are the relative intensities of the lights and the resulting contrast? You know, how much brighter is that one than that one? And how much of a contrast ratio does that create? How even and flat, or how much dramatic, bright and dark do you have in the scene? What color are the lights? Are they all the same color? Do they vary? Is there a color contrast? Are there cool and warm, for instance? And does that create a mood? Does that affect the feeling of the scene? Are there objects with different reflectivity in the scene? And how does that work? How are these objects reflecting light? How is that affecting the exposure? How are brighter or darker objects exposing darker or lighter in the final exposure? And how does that affect the contrast in the scene? Darker objects and lighter objects creating overall contrast. Are there hard and soft light sources going on here? How do you tell, how is that working toward the overall mood and effect of the scene? What are we using to control the light or to shape it? What are we using to modify, you know, what's shadow, what's lit? How do the motion in the elements when the video is rolling, the different things that are moving, how does that, you know, create an effect for the scene? You know, what's the overall mood? How's this scene feel?
So I hope that helps. And that's foundational film lighting from Richard Productions. We may have one little follow-up video we're going to sneak in here in a little bit, but we would love to do more of this. If you know anyone that would want to partner and develop more educational content like this, we really enjoy doing it. And, you know, send them our way. And of course, pass the word to anyone that you think might benefit. Thank you.